Hello, everybody. I am here today to talk about the project layout of Wonderspark, or Project Wonderspark is what I like to call it. And essentially, where I'm at right now is planning. Now, this might go a little bit backwards. I've been spending months looking online, essentially how to plan a independent video game. Now, a lot of the feedback out there is, hey, just make tiny games, and then eventually maybe you could do a mock-up of that video game that you're building, and it might be fun, it might not be fun, but at least you're not wasting the time. However, I'm approaching this completely backwards, similar to how I approach different software tasks in my current career, where I plan them basically in my IDE moving forward. Um, just a little bit about me. I have no video game experience, no pixel art experience, no marketing experience, no video editing experience, which I'm sure you will highly tell from this video, but I do have experience in building tiny software projects, mostly for customers, here or there. I consider myself basically a duck type programmer. I've been in the industry now for uh, six years about, and most of my projects are short lived with customers, and then I'm on to the next thing. So essentially, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. But one great thing that my career has given me is the ability to move forward, fail fast, and learn while I go. Now, how I'm planning Project Wonderspark is essentially through um, Godot, which is the or not the language engine, the video game engine which I am choosing to use. Now, some people wonder why I'm not using Unity. Unity is more fleshed out, it's more robust, it's older, and that is a subject for another time. In fact, I'll make a video why I chose it at some point, just because I think it's a valid point of why I chose it. I played with both. I gave them both the time of day, and I decided on Godot moving forward. But anyways, how I am planning this project is keeping all my project management resources actually inside of my video game project. Now, some people out there, especially programmers or anyone that works on long-term projects, might be screaming in the top of their head, or not in the top of their head, but inside their head, why in God's green earth is he doing that? And it's true, right? Once this game gets published, it'll be moved out of it. But right now, while I'm currently working on it, this is the best place for this folder to live. Therefore, I don't have to context swap. If you're not familiar with the term context swap, it essentially is like, say for instance, you're making yourself a cup of coffee, and then someone is like, "Hey, what do you want for breakfast?" And you're like, "Oh, wow, so many options. I don't know, eggs, bacon, cereal," and then you forget all about the coffee, and then you have to go back to being like, "Hey, what was I doing? Oh yeah, I was making coffee." Well, if I keep the project inside the IDE and focus my time on different portions of my project, then I'm probably going to move a little bit faster if I dedicate these times to it. At least over the course of the 5 years of my career, I've noticed that if I keep my notes, my project management inside of where I'm working, I don't get distracted. And I'm easily distracted. I don't know if you can tell by the rants that I'm going on right now, but I'm a very easily distracted individual. So, when it does come to how I have this formatted, I am keeping it here in my project. Now, just to cover some bases, what I have in front of you is my GitHub repo for Project Wonderspark, and the README, which is essentially a document that says, hey, take a look here before you go on playing around with this project. I give you some useful insights. Now, this is all in Markdown, which I'll add a link to it. I'll add a link to everything that I'm currently using for my project as it relates to this video. But what we see here is my README. And what I have laid out is established in May 31st, 2023. This is essentially the day that I decided I'm going to stop daydreaming about Project Wonderspark and I'm actually going to start doing. The idea of Wonderspark actually came to me in February. And maybe I'll have a whole video of how this idea came to me, but I kind of want to keep this idea hush. I have the complete idea to turn my YouTube channel basically into a game, hinting at what this game is going to be about. And the first person that guesses it will essentially get to live immortalized inside the game as a character or a monument. I'm not sure which, but I think it would be kind of fun. Now, when it comes to the first thing you'll see on my README, it's the guidance. Now, guidance is essentially what the touchstone of my project is. If nothing I'm building for my project, right, in front of my customers or the players meets these requirements, then it has no use inside this game. Now, when I build these out, I essentially want them to be very basic. Keep it between 1 to 5, no more, right? So the 3 for Wonderspark is make you feel nostalgic without really knowing why. Now, what does this mean? Well, have you ever played a video game that made you feel nostalgic, right? It kind of hits on something, whether it be the music, the tone, the colors, or even the gameplay itself makes you have this feeling of kind of being a kid again, right? That is a feeling I kind of want to go with Wonderspark. Number 2 touchstone is essentially give a sense of wonder and magic, which is similar to number 1, but quite a bit different. Now, the sense of wonder and magic inside of Project Wonderspark, now that's up to the player, whether or not they feel it. But wonder and magic is essentially think about when if you've ever gone to Disney World, Disneyland, Magic Kingdom, what have you, and you've seen little dioramas and they look magical. Or say you're playing a video game and you find some interesting thing in the woods that you think that like you're the only person that has seen it, right? You've discovered something, the sense of wonder. Now, chances are people have probably seen it, but you discovered it without reading about online or so on and so forth. That is another thing that I want this game to give. And 3, but most importantly, since it is a video game, it must be fun. So these are my 3 touchstones for my project. If it's not fun, if it's not whimsical and magical, and if it doesn't make you feel nostalgic, then what is it doing in this game? Now, with that said, every single one of my goals should attain to one of these guidance. Now, not necessarily every single one, so I kind of refrain. Administrative goals slash marketing is not necessarily going to trigger essential wonder or magic in anyone, or cause any nostalgia, or be fun in that regards. Now, when it comes to my yearly goals, the project is basically broken down into 3 different categories. We have administrative, game development, and assets. Now, administrative is everything that has nothing to do with the game development or the art involved, right? So this is project planning. Essentially what you're seeing here when I was mocking all this up, typing it out. Essentially, administrative tasks are just that. It is me coming up with the ideas of how I need things organized, and I've also slapped in marketing into this as well. Now, over the last 4 months, watching a bunch of videos, seeing how people do it, game convention talks, it seems that people are like, man, I really wish I did marketing from the beginning, which is essentially also another reason why I'm doing this YouTube channel. This will eventually make the message go out. I'm sure I have no one right now, but over time I might have other developers watch this or game players when I'm get to the point where I can actually beta 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 test the game on multiple platforms. Maybe I'll already have some viewers going on from there. Now, when it comes to the game development portion, you can think of this as anything that has to do with the coding or the thought process of how to make this game fun. So, over the course of the next year, what I need to do with game development is a strong grasp on Godot 4 and GD script. I've decided to use GD script with Godot because that's its native language and therefore the most useful. Now, a lot of arguments here. C sharp's faster, Java faster, insert language faster. This is how it is. Now, I'm okay with Java. I'm okay with C sharp. I know a lot of languages at a shallow level. And one thing I could tell you is always just choose the language for the job and don't just scream into a wall. GD script was built for Godot. Use it. Languages are different, but they don't differ by that much. Basically, every time I work on a project in a language I'm not familiar with, I go, hey, how do I do this in this language? Simple Google search, and you're like, oh, okay, that's a loop. Cool. Sounds great. Bam, I'll do that. Now, when it comes to assets, this is everything to do with the building of the materials. So this is the art, the music, the sound. I like to think of this as essentially the soul of the game, right? This is what people are going to see. This is what people are going to feel, and this impacts my two major things when it comes to my game development. Make you feel nostalgic, wonder, and magic. These things will trigger that. Gameplay will also trigger that to an extent in game development, but assets are going to be the true things that lure you into it, right? Now, since I didn't talk too much about administrative, my goals for this year are basically to complete a thorough MVP of Project Wonderspark. When an MVP is the minimum viable product. Now, I'm not going to necessarily make a complete MVP of this. It's kind of a stretch goal. What I really want is the ability to actually started work on some of the major aspects of this game, right? So, what are some major aspects of this game that could exist without me spoiling what the game actually is? Well, let's take Stardew Valley, for instance, right? Its major aspects are walking around, moving, planting crops, growing crops, selling crops, and interacting with some NPCs. You could basically say that boils down to its MVP, right? For instance, Mario, it could be jumping on things, squishing them, save princess kind of aspect, right? So as long as I have the bones of this project and where it's going, um, ideaed out and possibly developed, I'll be pretty stoked on that. Now, what I really want also as administratively is to make sure that I have a vision of where the project's going to be by the end of year one for year two, right? So that'd be something that I'm probably going to add after this call now that I thought about it, right? By the end of year one, I need to know basically what the long term goal of year two is. Now, coming down, we also have links to important areas. We have our sprint log, random idea bins, secrets list, cost log, video ideas, stuff along those routes that I'm going to be using for the game development. Now, sprint log is essentially kind of how I'm going to go about doing this, right? Everything's going to be in 2 week sprints. Now, tackling a major project, um, now, this is coming from someone whose longest project has been 6 months. Now, tackling major projects, it's always better, right, to chunk it. And by that, I mean break it up into tinier, digestible pieces. If I just sit here and think forever, hey, I can't wait for this game to be done, and I just daydream, and I start getting overwhelmed by all the things I have to do, right? For instance, I know nothing about pixel art. So, as you can see, I have some videos up already where I am doing the studying of pixel art 1 hour at a time after following some thing. It's basically my study group thing. Please go do that if you want to follow on. But I know nothing about pixel art. I also know nothing about sound, right? So, if, say, for instance, I want the sound of someone chopping wood, I either have to go find this asset or I have to go record it myself. Also, music. I know nothing about music. Now, I have played around with music in the past, like most people, but I would never say I'm good at it. Now, when it does get to the music aspect of asset building, I'll go ahead and share some of the horrible music I've made in the past, but basically, I'm coming at that from zero experience. The only thing I have experience in is projects that are smaller and software engineering. And even then, I'd probably say I'm at the level of a junior developer because I'm mostly a jack of all trades when it comes to engineering building. So when it does come to my sprints, I've boiled it down into this simple boilerplate, which I'm going to copy paste for every sprint. But we're going to have sprint number, the dates it happens, the focus on the game development, the focus on assets, and the focus administration. As you can see here, these are the 3 areas of my game development that will make up the game, right? Then I also have secondary focus, which I think needs to get deleted. I think that's just floating here. A link to the actual sprint task, and then a retro wins improve hours. So what the retro is a retrospective. At the end of the sprint, I will write down, hey, this is what happened. Here's a summary of my notes from my sprint tasks sheet, uh, pros and cons, right? Which is basically wins and improve. Where did I win? Where did I succeed? And where do I have room to improve, right? Uh, don't put losses because every time you're going to lose, right? You're going to lose something and it just kind of makes you feel bad. So fail fast, grow fast. Where can you improve on what you did? And then the hours I spent, right? I want to start logging all the hours that I spend working on this game so I can see, hey, if it does make money. So let's say if it made me $1,000, and I spent 1,000 hours on it, which is probably gonna be a lot more time than 1,000 hours. I made $1 an hour, right? Can I say it from there, right? So I just want to track all these things. Also, for transparency purposes, it'd be great if, in 5 years, 5, 6 years, I'm kind of juggling it, when this game does get released, to kind of look back at this and be like, hey, all the people that joined me on this journey, like, look, I spent this many hours on um, working on this video game, and this is in all honesty what looks like being almost a complete beginner in game development, building an indie game. Now, coming down, we'll see the receipt for my current sprint. So, as you see, I got rid of the secondary focus, but the current sprint, we're in sprint 1 from May 29th, 23 to 6/11. 2 week sprints, focus on game dev, build Godot basic tutorial. So, basically, I want to go through Godot's basic tutorial. I think it's this like eye thing that dodges stuff. Go through that within the next 2 weeks. Focus on assets, complete pixel course on segment 6, and then focus on administration, create 14 YouTube videos, including this one you're watching right now. So this is essentially my goals for the next 2 weeks. Now, where it comes to link to the sprint task, if we come here, this will be my sprint task, which is stored in my sprint sheets folder. But as we can see here, hours, this I'm still planning out. I think I'm going to put like how many hours I think I'm going to spend on a sprint, which is about 20 hours a week, which is basically a part-time job. Admin tasks, I think I'm going to spend around 10 hours on admin tasks, upload 10 YouTube videos, research YouTube channels, etc. Notice how the numbers have changed from 14 to 10. I kind of changed it up somewhere during this process, but this is also what a retrospective is for, and also to show that I'm still learning. I don't know what I'm doing, and this is just how I think I'm going to go about doing it. Now, asset tasks, I'm going to spend about 30 hours on. Section 2 of practice done, 3 is done, 4 is done, 5 is done as of this morning, I guess. But I need to do my YouTube video of me practicing actually doing the tasks. When it comes to game development, Godot basic example tutorial. I don't know how long this is going to take. I basically threw all the time into Pixel and have no idea how long this is going to take, right? I haven't done this before. So I have no idea what to expect on the time allotment. Once again, I'm getting a feel, and most of this administrative stuff is probably going to change over the course of the next couple months, where I'll probably do an update video on then. Now, if I go back to the README, where it has other sections, after doing that, I also have the random idea bin. This is where I'm going to put random ideas that come to me. So if I'm working on Pixel, I'm like, oh man, I have this great idea for the game, dump it in the random idea bin, right? This is where things can get real bad, especially if you're someone like me that's kind of scattered all over the place. If you're working on a project, you're like, oh my god, I need to add this thing to it. Whether it be a game or anything else in life, it could be crochet. I have no idea because I don't crochet, but let's say you have a random idea and you're like, oh man, I cannot wait to add this. I'm going to add this. This is totally where it's going to go. Throw in the random idea bin. Throw in the random idea bin. Come revisit random idea bin once a week. You might have had a thought that was really bad, but at the time it sounded really, really good. Or also, you might be like, hey, that's scope creep. You have to sit down with yourself and have some realistic expectations. Possibly tell yourself, hey, you know what, Alex? This is some scope creep, and this will take way longer. So, for instance, let's say you're building a video game, it's something really cool, it's a farm sim, you're like, wow, this is so awesome. And you're halfway through, you're a couple years in, and then all of a sudden you're like, do you know what would make this way better? If it was you know, a JRPG turn based with randomly generated map. And you're like, wow, that does sound cool. Well, now you need to develop map generation, so some kind of like AI kind of thing with a seeder to develop these randomized maps. But then you also need to build this new combat, right? This new combat method. So now you have this massive scope creep. This game went from, oh, it might be done in 2 years to all of a sudden, yeah, it might be done in 5 years now. We might have just restarted from the beginning. So whenever you do come with that random idea that might be a scope creep, add to it. Maybe you'll update the game, right? That's basically my plan. Stick to the MVP, stick to the idea, and these cool ideas I get will probably be updates, right? So, Wonderspark 1.2, might essentially be the randomized map with the turn-based RPG status, right? Something along those lines. But make sure you get that game out. You stick to the essence of what you want it to be, and make sure that it's what you want it live. And then when you get the wild ideas, throw them in. But random idea can also be small things. Maybe you have a character idea. Maybe you have a new mini quest idea. Something along those lines. Now, the secret list is something I will never be sharing with you all. Dun dun dun. Basically, this folder is labeled secrets to essentially tell me not to click on this to show you all. But there is a sense of wonder that I want in this game, hence why that is my second touchstone that I don't want people to know, right? If someone decides to mod this game in the future, I will probably have a secrets list, and there will probably be something inside of it saying, please, I beg of you, don't share anything here. I know you can access it, I can't really stop you. Please don't share this. But basically, a secret list is going to be all Easter eggs, right? All little secret things, all these little tidbits that people won't know about, right? Maybe there's a 1 in 1,000 chance that you're going to come across a purple tree, and no one knows it. But all of a sudden you're like, whoa, what's the significance of the purple tree? You click on the purple tree and it gives you this wild quest for a cool weapon that's super rare. Something along those lines, right? I'm just making stuff up as I go. Um, but think of it like that, right? It's that sense of wonder and discovery. And if I shared that on this YouTube channel, well, then people will know about it and the wonder will be gone. Now, cost log is basically how much money I've spent total making this game. Now, $720 is kind of arbitrary completely because I'm including the computer I bought myself for my birthday in it because that's what I'm recording on. I just felt weird only having the pixel art class. Oh, I guess I also have A-Sprite on here. So A-Sprite would be like another $20. So we're at $740. So I need to update this cost log. But also, this is where I'm logging my hours. So all the hours of what I've been doing, I will log here as well, update the hours per sprint, total hours spent, yada yada, so that way if this game does ever make any money, I will know how much I get paid an hour to essentially do this. Now, this is how I'm planning out my project. Do you have any thoughts on how I'm planning out my project? All thoughts, fantastic. Tell me all about it. Please comment. Tell me what you think, how it could be better. I'm really looking forward to telling me how it could be better because this is a learning process for me. I appreciate it all, and please like, subscribe, and follow me while I struggle through game development.